on to chapter 2. We are going to, this is 2. 2.1 is what the actual lesson is. 1.4 is the 8th grade lesson. I just kind of copied it. We're moving on to properties of real numbers. The vocab words associated with properties that you need to be familiar with is the word equivalent. And equivalent means that two statements are the same. So we use properties to create equivalent statements, equivalent expressions. Properties of real numbers are commutative, associative, and identity. Commutative just means flipping the terms. Flip them or switch them. That's all it means. So flip or switch the terms. What I mean by that, algebraically, that means I'm just talking in letters, A plus B would be the same thing as B plus A, flipping the two terms. Okay? Associative property, what you do is move the parentheses to different terms. Terms means part of an expression. So you move the parentheses to different terms. And when I say, I guess a vocab word could be terms, A, B, and C are all terms of an expression. They make up part of the expression. Okay? So if I move the parentheses to include different terms, then I'm going to, this is A plus the quantity B plus C. If I want to move them around, then I can group A and B together, then add C. Commutative and associative only work for adding and multiplying. It does not work for subtracting and dividing. So these properties that we're learning about all have to deal with adding and multiplying. And I think of the root word associate, and when I think of associate, I think I have a group, I have an association, a small group that I hang out with. Okay? When you think of the associative property, you're just expanding your group. You are rotating it up. Right now, B and C are besties. They're hanging out together. Then B just gets kind of annoyed and now decides to associate and hang out with A. It's a new association is going on. A new grouping is going on. Identity property, the value stays the same. It keeps its identity. That would be 4 times what could give me 4. I want to stay the same. 4 times what? Yep. 1. It could be 1. So again, identity property is working with multiplication and addition as well. If I wanted to add 4 plus what would keep my identity of 4? 0, right? So the identity property would be multiplying by 1 or adding 0. Hey, 0 property. The expression turns to, oh, watch this, geniusness. It'll turn to 0. So you might have some crazy expression and when you look at that, you should utilize your property knowledge and look and scan, hey, I have 1 0 in there, my answer is just going to be 0. Use that property. Use it a lot. 0 times anything is going to be 0. That's a 0 property. Multiplication property of -1. All that property states is you change the signs. It's changing signs. You're timesing something by -1 to change it. For instance, when we get to actual solving, we might have like -x is equal to 5. X is not solved here. X is never solved unless x is by itself. So I have to apply this multiplication property of -1 times both of them by -1 and it gets my x totally alone. Layman's terms, meaning the easy way, I just say change the sign, then change the sign of everything. Like -x equals -3, x would be +3. negative x equals 1/2, x would equal a negative 1/2. Okay? That's all utilizing this multiplication property of negative 1. It's just changing the sign. Okay, we are going to identify properties given a numerical or algebraic expression. X plus 0 equals x. Which property could that be? Yep.
0.
0 property means I end in a 0. Christian? I stayed the same. X plus 0 is x. I stayed the same. That is identity. So, good. You're kind of comparing both sides of the expression. And I see I have an x here and an x here. It stayed the same. It's identity. 3 plus 5 plus x equals 3 plus 5 plus x. Yep. Associative, yep, right? And we can just say it together. Associative because right now 5 and x are associating together. And then I move and I got 3 and 5 associating together. I got a new grouping. That is associative property. 10 times x times 0 is 0.
The 0 property?
0 property because I have a 0 at the end.
0.
5 plus 2x equals 2x plus 5. What's that? Yep. Commutative. I flip the terms. So again, I'm comparing. I have 5 first here, second here. I flipped them. I switched the terms. Commutative. y4 equals 4y. Yep.
Multiply?
Multiply, kind of. Yep. Of negative 1 you're thinking, but I didn't change any signs. I just flipped these two around, didn't I? And if I flip numbers around, that is all a commutative property. Okay? Now if I said 4y and then I translate it to negative 4y, that's a multiplication property of negative 1. I changed the sign. Okay. An application with properties is using them to do mental math. When we do mental maths, we want to put together the facts that we know. We want to smush them together, switch them around so we can do them fast. We want to do fast facts is really what I'm getting at. Fast facts is any power of 10. So 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or 25s. Those are very fast facts for most students. So when I look at this first example, I'm looking at that ending digit. If I'm finding the sum and I want to use mental math, I'm trying to see, can I add anything together that will create a 10? I see the 3 and 7 would create a 10. Commutative property says that I can add them together. I could switch them around. Okay? So I know then that this would turn into a 10. I would carry a 1. 0 and 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 1 and 1 is 2. So I have 2.30 plus 4.5. Now I can just go, this would be 0.80 and 6. 6.80. So my process was to look at the ending digits to see if I can make a 10, add them up, and then add that last digit up. Looking at this next example, 4 times 6 times 25, I can switch them around. Commutative property of multiplication tells me I can. Are there any fast facts that you know? Go ahead. 4 times, well, 6 times 4, yeah. 24 times 25, then that didn't really help me much, right? Grace?
4 times 25.
4 times 25 helps me, right? Because that's 100. So now I turn that into 100 times 6, 600. Now notice the difference. I could get to 600 here, it's just not fast. I'd have to do some old school math that way. So the biggest thing with mental math is to do do fast facts. The next concept, using properties to simplify expressions, is applying the associative property, regrouping things. Associative property says that 3 and x are associated together here, right? Well, I can regroup this as 4 times 3 and then times it by x, which is 12x. Now, I never do this step, only when I'm first teaching you guys. Normally, I just know associative property lets me do it, so I go 4 times 3 is 12, throw the x. Okay, that's my quick way to do it. 4 plus 7b plus 8. Again, I can apply associative and commutative property here. And I can add together, it's really like terms, but I can regroup this as 4 plus 8 plus 7b. 4 plus 8 is 12 plus 7b. Now, refresher, we haven't done any simplifying expressions with like terms. I can't add them together. They are not like terms. 12 would have to have a b on it in order for it to be 19b. It is just 12 plus 7b. Okay? 6 plus 4, 8 plus 3. What I do, if you don't want to do this part I did in the previous problem, I just say, okay, what can I combine together? I can go 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 4h. That's my fast way of doing it. If you like to know the how are you doing this, you can regroup utilizing the associative property of addition like that. 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 4h. Choose strategies, you do it whatever way you like. Simplifying fraction expressions is the last concept we're going to cover in today's property lesson. What you want to do is cross out any common factors. So you cross out any common factors. And then you simplify the coefficients, which just means numbers. Coefficient is number in front of a variable. For example, 12x over 4. Well, I can't cross out really any common factors, but 12 and 4, I can simplify that, right? This turns into 3x over 1, which is just 3x. X over 3x, what do they have in common? They both have x. Look what happens. Bam, they're out. They cross out. It's like a game. But I don't have a 0 on top. I actually have a 1 on top. Because it's like 1 times x. So that 1 doesn't just disappear. This turns into 1 over 3. 6xy over 2y. What do they have in common? Y. Cross them out. And I get 6x over 2. 6 over 2 is what? 3. So I just can write that as 3x. Okay? All right. Before we finish, I want to just prompt you on, we've been really stinking at making guiding questions, and we have to make a conscious effort to get better at that. If you look here, the topic of this whole slide was simplifying fraction expressions, crossing out common factors, simplify the coefficients, okay?